4 years, Radovan Karadzic waged his war from the fastness of this mountain base above Sarajevo. This, according to the Hague indictment, is where he ordered multiple acts of genocide, crimes against humanity, extermination and forced deportation. Throughout the conflict, his daughter Sonja was at his side, running his information office. She says she heard about her father's arrest when a friend called to say she'd seen the news on TV.
At that moment, I felt very mixed, both relieved and afraid. It was 5 years since we'd been in touch. We had begun legal action to have him declared dead, and now, for the first time, we knew that he was alive and we'd be able to see him.
Radovan Karadzic was the Bosnian Serbs' political leader. He and General Ratko Mladic led a war to divide Bosnia on ethnic lines. Backed by neighboring Serbia, they had overwhelming military superiority against the much weaker Bosnian government. They used that superiority to lay siege to and bombard the capital, Sarajevo. 13 years on, the city still carries the scars. I used to come up here during the war, and there were Serb gun positions all along this ridge. The city was laid out like a map beneath their feet. You could see just how easy it was to pick off the targets in the streets below. And when you're up here now, you still get the impression that the city is in the palm of your hand. Radovan Karadzic lived about 15 or 20 minutes drive in that direction, and under his command, the siege of Sarajevo lasted 44 months. Forces loyal to your father, forces of whom your father was a civilian commander, laid siege to Sarajevo and repeatedly bombarded Sarajevo and killed innocent civilians. Your father made no effort to put a stop to that. Do you accept that?
Yes, I know that that is as you say.
So do you accept that your father has responsibility for that?
No, I can't accept that because I really know I was there and I worked with him all the time. He can't be responsible for such things.
Who's responsible?
I can't say that. Maybe process against my father will prove who is. Somebody is.
Serbs?
Maybe. Maybe people who did what they did in Srebrenica. Maybe people who were paid to do what they did.
The massacre at Srebrenica in July 1995 is one of the most serious charges against her father. After a 3-year siege, Serb forces seized the Muslim-populated town, then rounded up the population. The women and children were ordered onto buses and allowed to flee. The men and older boys were almost all murdered. Up to 8,000 of these men were killed. Sonja Karadzic makes the extraordinary claim that the killings were carried out by a criminal gang of 8 people, and that they were acting on behalf of the Americans.
Srebrenica is in itself very much a fabricated story. The number of bodies, their gender, who they really were. It goes back to 1993, 2 years before the tragedy. It was determined then that Srebrenica would be the location of a crime and that there would have to be a minimum of 5,000 victims. That was determined by President Clinton. It was meant to happen in April 1993, but the Bosnian president, Allan said no. So it happened later in July 1995. There were 8 executioners. Their names are well known, as well as those who gave the orders. No charges have been brought against them. That's been disallowed. But Clinton needed a minimum of 5,000 victims to justify NATO making airstrikes against the Serbs.
The killings at Sarajevo and Srebrenica are just 2 of dozens of allegations that Radovan Karadzic will face in court. His daughter insists he's an innocent man, manipulated by outside forces. For she also claims that the US peace envoy Richard Holbrooke struck a deal with her father, promising him immunity from prosecution in return for disappearing from public view. Mr. Holbrooke flatly denies it.
The deal was the result of a long process, many months. The threat was that my father's political party would be banned and not allowed to take part in elections. that the existence of Republika Srpska itself would now be put in danger. So my father agreed to the deal. Holbrook said if he resigned as leader and withdrew from public life, in return he would not be prosecuted by the Hague Tribunal. The words Holbrook used were, Radovan Karadzic is safe and there will be no trial.
The war Radovan Karadzic waged left millions homeless. It killed on average 100 people a day, every day, for 3.5 years. His daughter's account of his role reveals how Radovan Karadzic will defend himself. He will try to persuade the court that he is an innocent man wronged by larger forces and greater powers. Allan Little, BBC News, Sarajevo.